Now, archaeologists have discovered ancient rock carvings at the city of Mosul's monumental Mashki Gate.
We get an ancient literary description. Now we have a material culture that matches that. Chris, you're sitting where Samuel.
The modern age has brought with it many marvelous inventions, including phones, helicopters, and astronaut suits. However, artifacts from ancient times prove that those inventions either were available in those times or time travel is real. We will let you decide which the case was as we bring you 20 ancient artifacts claimed to be from the future. At number 1 is the 800-year-old mobile phone found in Austria. Do you enjoy your mobile phone? Perhaps you are watching this video on one. But have you thought about it that your ancestors knew about mobile phones 800 years ago? Perhaps somebody from our own era time-traveled and showed them one. A photograph of an 800-year-old mobile phone discovered in Austria has been circulating on the internet, suggesting our ancestors may be phone-savvy after all. Archaeologists discovered the phone during a dig in Futureunity am See, Austria. It is 800 years old and covered in cuneiform symbols and looks a lot like a Nokia mobile phone. Cuneiform mostly fell out of use around the 7th and 6th centuries BC, and by the 5th century AD or so, it had almost entirely ceased to be used except in scholarship. It certainly wasn't in common enough use to be the markings on a mobile phone key, even if there was a civilization capable of making one. However, that might only be a hint that our ancestors enjoyed rocking vintage phone designs. Many experts have said no one is fully able to understand what a device with cuneiform writing is doing in Austria. However, others have speculated that it could have originated in an even more unusual location. Some claim that the phone is evidence of visits from an alien civilization. At number 2, the flying machine found in ancient Egypt. For most people in the world, going to Egypt means taking a flight or two. However, it appears for ancient Egyptians, flying machines were not strange, even though you might think aircraft are modern inventions. This is due to some unique findings at Seti I's temple in Abydos, Egypt. Among the usual insects, symbols, and snakes, the 3,000-year-old hieroglyphs discovered in the temple depict a helicopter, plane, and futuristic aircraft. The writings have come to be known as the helicopter hieroglyphs, with claims that if the ancient civilization was putting helicopters and modern spacecraft in their artwork, they must have seen them or at least pictures of them. And for that to happen, someone from the future must have taken them there. But there is another explanation: aliens. One popular theory is that an advanced race sold Egyptians details of futuristic technology. They were visitors from a distant, highly advanced planet who came to share their knowledge with the primitive communities on Earth. These extraterrestrials were probably also responsible for the construction of the pyramids, Stonehenge, and other world-famous structures. At number 3 is the bicycle carved 2,000 years ago into a temple wall in India. Bicycles are a cheap way to get round in many parts of the world. They're also fun to ride, and many people use them to get their daily dose of exercise. But there has been reported evidence of bicycles appearing some 2,000 years ago, which would shock many. An eerily modern bicycle carving has been discovered on the wall of a 2,000-year-old temple in India. So either the founders of the Panchavarnaswamy temple, which was built during India's ancient Chola period, predicted the arrival of the bike by hundreds of years, or they rode them. The first chain-driven bike was invented in 1885. Praveen Mohan, who discovered the carving and posted about it on his YouTube channel, said, "In a dark corner on one of the walls, we can see this amazing carving of a man riding a bicycle. Historians say the bicycle was invented in the 1800s, just 200 years ago. But how is this carved in this 2,000-year-old temple?" Mr. Mohan posted a video of the discovery online, and the carving bears an uncanny resemblance to the type of bike you'd see today. Neither the temple officials nor scholars could explain how the bicycle carving got there. At number 4 is what could be a prehistoric wall near the Bahamas. In 1968, a large thick block of rock was discovered off the coast of the Bahamas. Archaeologist William Donato conducted multiple dives to investigate the wall and believes it is a man-made structure that was built to protect a prehistoric settlement from waves 12,000 to 19,000 years ago. He discovered it to be a multi-tiered structure with prop stones that appear to have been placed there by human hands. He also discovered what appeared like anchor stones with rope holes in them. However, according to Dr. Eugene Shin, a retired geologist who worked for the US Geological Survey, core rock samples he took show a dip toward deep water. He claimed if all of the cores show a dip toward deep water, it will demonstrate that the rock formed where it is and did not form elsewhere later to be transported to its current location by humans. But then Dr. Greg Little, a psychologist who was interested in this structure, confronted Shin about this theory, and Shin admitted that he didn't take his research seriously and that he got carried away with making a good story. This leaves Donato's discovery intact. At number 5 is an ancient Greek laptop complete with USB ports found on a gravestone. The more modern-day devices found in ancient inscriptions, the harder it gets to deny time traveling, or how else would a laptop find its way into a statue from the ancient Greeks? The laptop even has USB ports. The 37-inch marble statue grave Naiskos of an enthroned woman with an attendant was created around 1000 BC and depicts a woman opening a laptop-like item while being held up by an attendant. The item has two surfaces that open at a 90-degree angle similar to a laptop. It also has two holes in the side where you would expect a USB port or headphone jack to be located. However, some people have tried to present a different explanation of the statue. They claim it appears to depict a deceased woman reaching for a shadow box held by an attendant. This is quite a common theme in Greek funerary art. It is unclear whether the attendant represents a grieving young family member or a servant or an enslaved person. However, the deceased woman might have come from a wealthy family. And number 6 is the 500,000-year-old spark plug found in Olancha, California. If you drive a car, ride a bike, or use an electric generator, you will likely know about spark plugs, which help to ignite fuel in these machines. However, you would expect spark plugs to be relatively modern inventions, and our ancestors knew nothing about them. So imagine the shock of a trio out looking for geodes for their gem and gift shop in Olancha, California in 1961 when they came across what appeared to be a spark plug encased in a geode. One of the three discoverers, Virginia Maxey, stated at the time that a geologist examined the fossils surrounding the device and dated it to 500,000 years or older. The geologist was never identified, and the artifact's current location is unknown. The claim's critics, Pierre Stromberg and Paul V. Heinrich, can only analyze X-rays and an artist's sketch of the artifact. Instead of a geode, they believe it was a modern spark plug encased in a quick-forming concretion. However, the researchers have said that there is no evidence that the discoverers meant to deceive anyone. And number 7 is the 1.8 billion years old nuclear reactor found in Africa. Many people protest nuclear plants being built in their neighborhoods after the fatal nuclear accidents that have made headlines across the world. However, some experts claim nuclear energy is one of the safest and most reliable. However you feel about nuclear reactors, you might be shocked to learn that a 1.8 billion-year-old nuclear reactor was found in Africa. Nuclear reactors became mainstream in the 20th century, so where did this 1.8 billion-year-old reactor come from? In 1972, a French factory imported uranium ore from Oklo in Gabon, Africa. Already, the uranium had been extracted. It discovered the origin site to have apparently functioned as a large-scale nuclear reactor that existed 1.8 billion years ago and was in operation for approximately 500,000 years. Dr. Glenn T. Seaborg, former head of the United States Atomic Energy Commission and Nobel Prize winner for his work in heavy element synthesis, explained why he believes it was not a natural phenomenon and must have been caused by a man-made nuclear reactor. Extreme precision is required for uranium to burn in a reaction. According to several reactor engineers, the uranium in Oklo could not have been rich enough in U-235 for a natural reaction to occur, so a human must have had a hand in it. And number 8, the 150,000-year-old pipes in Mount Baigong, China. When you open a tap in your kitchen or the shower in the bathroom and water gushes out, you have miles and miles of pipes to thank because that is how water gets to your house. Piping is also crucial in hydrocarbon fuel processing, which allows you to use automobiles and such. However, are pipes really a modern invention? That question is worth asking after pipes leading to a nearby lake were discovered in caves near Mount Baigong in China. According to Brian Dunning of Skeptoid.com, the Beijing Institute of Geology dated them to around 150,000 years ago. According to state-controlled media Xinhua, the pipes were analyzed at a local smeltery and 8% of the material could not be identified. According to Zheng Jiandong, a geology research fellow with the China Earthquake Administration, some of the pipes were discovered to be highly radioactive in 2007. While Jiandong hypothesized that iron-rich magma rose from deep within the earth, bringing the iron into fissures where it solidified into tubes, he admitted there is something mysterious about these pipes, which strongly suggests they were of ancient human origin. He used radioactivity as an example of the pipe's strange properties. At number 9 is the Great Wall of Texas, which could be up to 400,000 years old. The Great Wall of China is one of the most popular ancient sites in the world. People flock there to marvel at the size and age of what remains of the system of walls. However, there is the Great Wall of Texas that is far older than that of China, showing our great ancestors knew much more about wall construction than we assume. Farmers digging a well in what is now Rockwall County, Texas, discovered what appeared to be an ancient rock wall in 1852. While some people claim it is a natural formation that is 200,000 to 400,000 years old, there is evidence that convinces others that it's clearly man-made. As part of a History Channel documentary, Dr. John Geisman of the University of Texas at Dallas tested the rocks. He discovered that they were all magnetized in the same way, implying that they formed where they are and were not moved from elsewhere. However, some people are skeptical of this single TV show test and want more research. Interestingly, geologist James Shelton and Harvard-trained architect John Lindsay have noted archways, lintel portals, and square openings that resemble windows and other architectural design elements in the Great Wall of Texas. At number 10 is a seafaring map that appears to have been made from the time before Antarctica was covered in ice. Many people rely on maps today to find their way. You could use one on your smartphone to get directions or do it the old-school way by following a paper map. Even seafarers had help navigating the open seas from maps. And apparently the oldest map is millions of years old. Yes, you heard that right, millions of years old. The evidence is Antarctica itself. Some believe that a map created by Turkish admiral and cartographer Piri Reis in 1513, but based on earlier maps, depicts Antarctica as it was before it was covered with ice. A landmass is shown jutting out from South America's southern coastline. In 1961, Captain Lorenzo W. Burroughs of the United States Air Force's Cartographic Section wrote to Dr. Charles Hapgood that this landmass appears to accurately depict Antarctica's coast as it is under the ice. Dr. Hapgood was among the first to publicly speculate that the Piri Reis map depicts Antarctica during the prehistoric period. He was a Harvard-educated historian whose theories about geological shifts won Albert Einstein's admiration. He proposed that landmasses shifted, which explains why Antarctica is depicted as connected to South America. And number 11 is the prehistoric work site discovered in Aix-en-Provence in France. Some of you watching this video work in a workshop with lots of tools and with other people, where the end product is metal work, metal painting, or repair shops. We might even have folks employed on work sites where construction is going on. But for how long do you think work sites have existed? Apparently, our ancestors got up and got dressed for a day of work at different work sites. In the 18th century, workers at a stone quarry near Aix-en-Provence, France, discovered tools stuck in a layer of limestone 50 feet underground. T.D. Porter, who was translating Count Bournon's work Mineralogy, published the discovery in the American Journal of Science and Arts in 1820. The wooden instruments had become agate, a hard stone. Everything tended to prove that this work had been executed upon the spot where the traces existed, Porter wrote. The presence of man had then preceded the formation of this stone, and that by a significant amount, because he had already reached such a level of civilization that the arts were known to him and that he wrought the stone and formed columns out of it. Limestone is known to form relatively quickly around modern tools. And number 12 is the explanation defying Antikythera mechanism. Many people think it would be hilarious to watch our ancestors' confusion if we can somehow bring them back to the present. Imagine how perplexed they would be as you try to explain how an Android phone works. But then the reverse is also possible, as the ancients have inventions that will confound you. Take, for example, the Antikythera mechanism. It confused scientists for many years before its function was decoded. The Antikythera mechanism was about the size of a mantle clock, and wood fragments found on the fragments indicate it was housed in a wooden case. Like a clock, the case would have had a large circular face with rotating hands. On the side, there was a knob or handle for winding the mechanism forward or backward. As the knob was turned, trains of interlocking gear wheels at various speeds drove at least 7 hands. Instead of hours and minutes, the hands displayed celestial time. One for the sun, one for the moon, and one for each of the visible planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. A rotating black and silver ball showed the phases of the moon. Inscriptions described which stars rose and set on any specific date. On the back of the case, there were 2 dial systems, each with a pin that followed its own spiral groove, similar to a record player's needle. A calendar was one of these dials. The other displayed the dates of lunar and solar eclipses. At number 13 is the Baghdad battery. Batteries power everything these days, from your iPhone to your Tesla car. But are you assuming the battery is a modern invention? Because if you are, you could be wrong. A 2,200-year-old clay jar discovered near Baghdad, Iraq, has been described as the world's oldest known electric battery. It has been attributed to the Parthian Empire, an ancient Asian culture that ruled most of the Middle East from 247 BC to AD 228. But how can a 2,200-year-old clay jar be called a battery? Well, what else could it be? The jar measures 512 inches high by 3 inches across. The hole was sealed with an asphalt plug which held a copper sheet rolled into a tube in place. This tube's bottom was capped with a copper disc held in place by more asphalt. A narrow iron rod was inserted through the upper asphalt plug and hung down into the center of the copper tube, never touching it. At number 14 is the 100-million-year-old hammer. Hammers are everywhere. Workers and non-pros use millions of them to achieve various tasks, including nailing, breaking down walls, forcing objects into position, and so forth. But how long have these versatile tools been around? You may be shocked to hear there is evidence they have existed for millions of years, which is just incredible. In 1934, a hammer was discovered encased in stone that had formed around it in London, Texas. The rock that surrounds the hammer is thought to be over 100 million years old. Carl Bohr, who owns the artifact, claims that the wooden handle has turned to coal, another evidence of its age. He also said that the metal it is made of has an unusual composition. Critics have called for more independent testing to verify these claims, but thus far, no such testing is being conducted. However, a vocal skeptic of claims that the hammer was made millions of years ago said that while the stone may contain materials that are more than 100 million years old, that doesn't mean the rock formed around the hammer that long ago. Some limestone has formed around 20th century artifacts, indicating that concretions can form fairly quickly around objects, he said. Concretions are hardened mineral matter masses. And number 15 is a common fashion accessory that also plays a practical purpose: the handbag. Handbag is a big business, but it is far from modern business. In fact, one of the most commonly found symbols in ancient carvings is an object that looks uncannily like a handbag. This shape can be found in depictions by the Sumerians of Iraq, the ruins of ancient Turkish temples, Maori decorations in New Zealand, and Olmec crafts in Central America. Handbags can be found in the art of various cultures all over the world and throughout history, with the first known instance of a handbag appearing at the end of the Ice Age. The object typically has a rounded handle-like top and a rectangular bottom, and may have varying degrees of additional texture or pattern details. It appears as a standalone object at times, and at other times it is depicted in the hand of a person, god, or mythical being, similar to how one would hold a basket. And number 16 is the ancient iron pillar found in India. You may be pardoned for not thinking much of an iron pillar that you come across on the road. However, this iron pillar located in Delhi is at least 1,500 years old. Amazingly, it is rust-free and of astounding purity. It is 99.72% iron, as measured by metal experts. In comparison, modern wrought iron has a purity of 99.8%, but it contains manganese and sulfur, both of which are missing from the pillar. The Iron Pillar of Delhi was made at least 400 years before the largest known foundry of the world could have produced it, which leaves historians with no clue as to how the ancients could have made it. And number 17 is another metal wonder, the Viking sword Ulfbert. Archaeologists were taken aback when they discovered the Viking sword Ulfbert, which dates from 800 to 1000 AD. They couldn't imagine how such a sword could have been made until the Industrial Revolution 800 years later. Its carbon content is 3 times that of other swords of the time, and impurities were removed to such an extent that the iron ore had to be heated to at least 3000 degrees Fahrenheit. Modern blacksmithing requires great effort and precision. Richard Furr of Wisconsin forged an Ulfbert quality sword using the technology available in the Middle Ages. He claimed it was the most difficult thing he'd ever built, and he used methods never before used by people of his generation. At number 18 is the million-year-old bridge linking 2 Asian countries. Bridges connect people and places and have apparently been doing so for 1,000,000 years. According to legend, King Rama built a bridge connecting India and Sri Lanka over 1,000,000 years ago. What appears to be remnants of such a bridge have been seen from satellite images, but many say it is a natural formation. And before you dismiss this as another myth, hear this. A former director of the Geological Survey of India has examined the bridge's core samples. He was shocked by the appearance of boulders on top of a marine sand layer and surmised that the boulders must have been artificially placed there. And number 19 is the Dendera light bulb. How old do you think light bulbs are? Hundreds of years? Well, the people of ancient Egypt might have had a form of the light bulb. Why do we say so? An image on the internet has shown what appears to be a light bulb. The image is found on 3 stone reliefs in the temple in Dendera, Egypt, and appears to be a bulb similar to a crux tube with a lotus socket at one end, a cable traveling underneath, and a snake-shaped cord filament inside. In the most common depiction of the so-called Dendera light, a priest is shown holding up the lamp with a few smaller figures beneath it. The light bulb is directed upwards by one of the figures. A 2-armed jade pillar is also shown with the bulb, and the hands are apparently connected to the cord inside. A baboon is shown in front of the lamp with 2 knives in front of it. At number 20 is the world's first earthquake detector invented in China 2,000 years ago. Earthquakes are no fun event, and it is crucial to get away from the site of one as soon as possible to avoid injuries or even death. Apparently, the ancient people of China also wanted to flee earthquakes as soon as possible because they invented the first earthquake detector 2,000 years ago. The invention is credited to Chinese inventor Zhang Heng, and his contraption was remarkably accurate in detecting earthquakes from afar. Also, it did not rely on shaking or movement in the location where the device was situated, meaning it could work remotely. Interestingly, the ancient Chinese had no idea that earthquakes were caused by tectonic plate movement in the Earth's crust. Instead, the scholars explain them as cosmic yin and yang disturbances, as well as the heavens' displeasure with acts committed or grievances ignored by the current ruling dynasty. However, because the ancient Chinese believed seismic events were important signs from heaven, it was important for the Chinese leaders to be alerted to earthquakes occurring anywhere in their kingdom. Zhang's seismoscope was a massive bronze vessel the size of a samovar, measuring nearly 6 feet in diameter. The primary compass directions were marked by 8 dragons snaked face down along the outside of the barrel. In each dragon's mouth was a small bronze ball. 8 bronze toads sat beneath the dragons, their wide mouths gaping to receive the balls. His invention also included a vertical pin that passed through a slot in the crank, a catch device, a pivot on a projection, and a sling. However, the exact mechanism of an earthquake that caused a ball to drop is still unknown. Let's hear what you think of these ancient inventions in the comments section.